The sound of my mother's voice cracked through the early morning silence like a whip. Up. We have to start now. No, good morning. No smile. Just an order. I blinked at the ceiling, already knowing what day it was. Celeste's birthday. Again. Verna stood in my doorway, holding a lavender dress that used to belong to her. My dead sister. Try this one, she said flatly, tossing it onto my bed. It's what she wore on her 15th. It was a size too small, and we both knew it. I squeezed into it anyway. The zipper caught on my rib cage. She handed me a hairbrush. Middle part. Loose waves. No eyeliner. She never wore eyeliner. As she leaned in to adjust a strand, I caught a whiff of her perfume. Something stale and synthetic like old lilacs and antiseptic. I nodded silently, every movement rehearsed. Even my face knew the performance by heart. Downstairs, Gregory was already sitting at the dining table, reading the local newspaper like it was any other morning. There's our Celeste, he said without looking up, and it hit like a slap across the cheek. Jude sat across from him. He looked up. Our eyes met. He said nothing. Just that. Nothing. Breakfast was cold pancakes and tension. Tonight has to go perfectly, Verna said, sipping coffee with chipped nails and a gaze that wouldn't let go. This is about her. About keeping her with us. I wanted to scream, I'm not her. But instead I asked, do you think people will remember what she played last year? My voice sounded too calm. Gregory patted my shoulder. Don't worry, sweetheart. You never forget the songs that live in your soul. Have you ever been forced to celebrate someone else's life while erasing your own? I wish someone would have asked me that. Out loud. The house was lit up like Christmas. White linen. Classical string quartet. Smiling guests who remembered my sister, or thought they did. They called me Celeste. Again and again. My, you've grown. You look just like your mother. Celeste, that dress is lovely. I smiled on cue. Thanked them on cue. Then came the piano. I sat on the bench like it was a guillotine. My fingers moved through Debussy's Clair de Lune with mechanical precision. It wasn't mine, not my choice, not my voice. But they applauded anyway. A woman leaned over to Gregory. She's just as gifted as Celeste was. He nodded proudly. The same blood runs through her. Later, I signed a thank you card. Out of habit, I signed Calla. Verna saw it, snatched it, ripped it in half without a word. The smile never left her lips. At school, I got called to the front at the weekly assembly. For outstanding academic performance, the principal said, handing me a certificate. The name read, Celeste Rowan. I stood frozen in front of the clapping auditorium. I didn't hear the applause, only the pounding in my ears. In the bathroom, I looked into the mirror and whispered, my name is Calla. It came out weak, uncertain, once, twice, Calla. The word didn't stick. That night, I lay awake thinking, would you fight to reclaim your name, or wear the mask they gave you forever? 3 days later, I waited until Verna and Gregory went to the town meeting. I knew where the drawer was. Top left of my father's desk. The one with the lock. A few years back, I saw him use a flathead screwdriver when the key went missing. That's what I did. Inside were old documents, bank records, photos, and then a thin white envelope with a state seal. Calla Marie Rowan, deceased. I dropped it. The paper floated like a feather. My name gone, like a clerical error that no one wanted to fix. I sat on the floor, heart pounding in my throat. Images returned. Faint memories. A bright hospital light. Tubes. Jude crying. Gregory's hands over his face. But I walked out of that hospital. Didn't I? Verna's voice behind me froze my blood. Now you know, she said. Calm. Cold. Celeste never left. We just had to remind the world. I looked at her. You killed me on paper. She didn't blink. We saved her. And you should be grateful you get to carry her light. I wanted to scream. I wanted to burn it all down. But I was too stunned to move. If your own parents told the world you were dead, what would you do to feel alive again? That night, I didn't sleep. I listened to Gregory pacing the hallway, talking softly, I thought, on the phone. But then I realized he was talking to Celeste. You'd be proud of her, he whispered. She's almost perfect now. I clutched the torn card. My old ID, the one that still said Calla. I packed it with a change of clothes and the only photo of me not cropped out, a middle school yearbook page where I was misidentified as Siroan. I passed the family portraits. In every frame, my face had either been replaced with Celeste's or removed entirely. I was a ghost in my own home. At the front door, I reached for the knob. I figured you'd try tonight. Gregory's voice floated behind me. I turned slowly. He stood there, hands in his pockets, smiling like he was proud. Leaving? That's not what Celeste would do. I met his eyes. I'm not Celeste. He stepped forward, just close enough to make me flinch. Then he whispered, Then I guess we'll have to teach you how to forget her all over again. The scent hit me first, something artificial, like lilac-scented cleaner over old grief. Then the light, soft yellow, filtered through lace curtains I'd never seen before. I sat up slowly. The walls were no longer mine. My posters, my books, the photos I'd taped up, gone. In their place, floral wallpaper and neatly aligned trophies bearing a name I no longer claimed. The door opened with a soft click. Gregory stepped in, holding a glass of orange juice like he was visiting a patient. Welcome home, he said. My throat clenched. The police. No one called them, he interrupted. Family matters stay inside family walls. Behind him, Verna hovered like a nurse. You had a break, she said softly, as if my breakdown had been an inconvenience. We're just glad you're safe now. I looked around. My phone gone. Laptop gone. Wallet, ID, all of it vanished. You took everything. We kept you, Gregory replied. I got up. My feet touched the plush rug, foreign under my soles. I walked to the vanity. A brush sat perfectly aligned beside a framed photo of Celeste. Her smile stared back at me, a still echo from a life I never lived. I said it again under my breath. I'm Calla. My voice didn't echo. Even sound died in that room. Have you ever been punished, not with violence, but with silence? The next morning, Verna introduced a man named Dr. Ellis Vane, tall, immaculately dressed, with a voice like velvet smoothed over steel. He's here to help, she said, placing a hand on my shoulder. We're concerned you may be suffering from dissociative symptoms, Gregory added. It's not your fault. In the mirrored room they called a therapy space, Dr. Vane sat across from me with a notepad. Tell me about Calla, he said. When did she first appear? I am Calla. He smiled sympathetically. Sometimes the mind invents stories to protect itself. Each session chipped away at reality. He praised my compliance, questioned my memories, made suggestions that sounded like facts. Maybe Celeste didn't die. Maybe Calla is who you created to process the grief. In the mirror I saw her, Celeste, or maybe me. standing on the other side. We stared at each other like enemies forced to share skin. Jude visited once. He stood in the doorway, eyes full of something between guilt and paralysis. I tried to reach him with my gaze, but he looked away. Dr. Vane's notes became thicker. I saw him underline words like hallucination, identity fracture, unfit. They weren't trying to help me. They were building a case. What's worse, losing your mind or having someone convince the world you already have? Late one night, I wrote a letter to Mara Leeds, Celeste's childhood friend. I told her everything. How I wasn't dead. How they made me be her. I tucked it inside a worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, the same one Celeste and I once fought over. I planned to slip it to Mr. Brenner, the part-time delivery driver who sometimes picked up books for donation. But Verna found it first. She didn't yell, didn't hit. She simply lit a match, set the page aflame, and watched it curl to ash in her porcelain tray. "I'm saving you from humiliation," she said softly. "We can fix you." I snapped. I lunged, screamed, tried to grab what was left. But Gregory was already behind me, arms like iron bars. He pried my mouth open and poured something bitter down my throat. Everything slowed, slurred. The next morning, I could barely speak. The silence wasn't theirs anymore. It lived in me now. Have you ever tried to tell the truth and watched someone burn it before your eyes? They moved me to Celeste's old bedroom. The door locked from the outside. The air was thick with perfume that had faded into something sour. Trophies lined the shelf. Her locket hung from a nail above the desk. I pried it open. Inside, an inscription, "Let me go." I sat on the bed and cried for someone I'd never met. My sister. My ghost. Had she tried to leave too? I stopped taking the pills. At night, I tucked them into the seam of my pillow. In the dark, Gregory would sit outside the door and read from her diary. "You loved horses. You hated thunderstorms. You always wore blue on Sundays." He was teaching me how to be her. Again, would you still fight to live if the only world you knew insisted you were already gone? I started pretending. I smiled more, spoke less, took the pills they gave me, or at least pretended to. Verna began scheduling a psychiatric evaluation. "One final confirmation," she told Gregory. "Then we'll begin full transition." I marked each day by memorizing every lock click, every key, every hallway creak. I whispered through the vent at night. Sometimes I thought I heard someone breathe back. Then one morning, folded beneath my breakfast napkin, a note in sharp handwriting. "Hold on. Someone's watching. Jude." That evening, I saw Elora Finch from across the yard. She was watering her garden, but paused, looked toward my window. She knew something. Maybe not everything, but enough. I'd escape again. Not to run this time. To expose. As Gregory locked my door that night, he said, "Next week, Celeste will be free again." I stared at the ceiling and whispered, "Then you'll finally meet Calla." The courthouse steps were cracked, sun-baked from years of Georgia heat. I stepped out of the black sedan, heels clicking against the concrete like a metronome, steady and deliberate. The morning air buzzed with reporters, murmuring locals, and the sting of whispers I could almost decipher. "That's her. She came back. Looks just like," but I kept walking. I had to. A placard read Superior Court of Clark County. Jude was already there, arms folded, eyes heavy with memory. "You really came back," he said, voice low. "I never left," I answered, adjusting the folder in my arms. "Just waited until I could do something about it." 10 years. 10 years since I slipped out into the night with only a torn ID and Alora's eyes watching from across the street. Foster care, trauma therapy, law school, and the long days working with Tessa March, the only woman who treated me like a person, not a ghost. Inside, the court was colder than the summer heat outside. Gregory sat at the defendant's table in a navy suit, calm, confident, like this was just another formality. Verna didn't look up. "All rise," the bailiff announced. The judge adjusted his glasses and read aloud. "This hearing is to determine the legal restoration of identity in the matter of Calla Rowan versus Gregory Rowan. This case rests on the identity of the petitioner. What would you do if your entire past was officially declared fiction?" The first witness was Mara Leeds, once Celeste's best friend, now a nurse. She approached the stand with deliberate steps. "That girl was never Celeste," she said firmly. "I saw her bleed, scream, fight. She wasn't mimicking grief. She lived it." Gregory stood. "Objection, hearsay. My daughter died 10 years ago." The judge nodded, but allowed Mara to continue. Then came Jude. He looked at me once before speaking. "I remember her. I mean Calla. I remember Calla." His voice cracked. "She was my sister too." "You almost had it right," I said. The room sat in silence. Then I produced the letter, the one Verna had burned, or tried to. Elora had saved it. Though ink had faded and water smudged the lines, one word still shone clear beneath the marks: Calla. Sometimes the truth doesn't scream. It waits. It whispers through the cracks. Elora Finch walked up with something small and blue clutched in her hands. "This was Verna's," she said, placing the journal on the table before the judge. Inside were entries spanning years, lines written in frantic script. Gregory said if I left, he'd take her. I was wrong. Eu schuld beveran. Calla was always the stronger one. One page, dated the year I turned 10, read, "I named her Calla because I knew she'd bloom beyond me." Tears slid down Verna's cheeks. Her voice cracked from disuse. "I was a coward," she whispered. "I let him bury her, and I did nothing." I looked at her. I didn't say a word. Would you forgive someone who chose silence over your life? Tessa stood next. Calm, professional, brilliant. Dr. Ellis Vane's entire evaluation was falsified. We've subpoenaed new evidence showing manipulation of medical records and unethical psychiatric conduct. The judge leaned forward. "Anything else, Ms. Rowan?" "Yes." I turned on the playback recorder, and the voice of a much younger Jude whispered through the courtroom. "One day we'll get her out. I promise." The courtroom sat stunned. Then the gavel came down. "I hereby rule in favor of Calla Marie Rowan. Her identity is legally reinstated. Gregory Rowan is charged with fraud, psychological abuse, and perjury." Gregory shot up. "She was never my daughter. Celeste was perfect. She was real." His face contorted in a fury that once frightened me. Not anymore. As the bailiffs dragged him from the courtroom, he leaned toward me and hissed, "You'll be sorry you lived." Would you still choose to live even knowing the pain it might bring? Outside, the air smelled different. Elora met me at the bottom of the steps, arms wide. "I always believed in you," she said, pulling me into a hug that didn't try to erase anything. Jude stood a few feet away, unsure. I didn't reach for him. I didn't need to. I walked, past the courthouse, past the silent onlookers, all the way to the old Rowan house, now faded, warped by time, its windows like hollow eyes. I stepped onto the porch. pulled the silver locket from around my neck, the same one that used to hang above Celeste's bed. I left it there, resting on the wood. Then, facing the world with the strength I had earned, I looked straight into the future and said aloud, Celeste is at peace, and I, Calla Rowan, am finally free.